Yes, Honourable Member.
I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that at its next sitting, this House debate the regulatory and commercial impediments preventing South Africa's entry-level broadband.
Thank you. Yes, Honourable Member.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I rise on behalf of the economic freedom fighters, which is the government in waiting.
Government ensuring that all goods and products that contribute to state construction projects should
debate the high number of crashes, fatalities and deaths involving trucks and other large vehicles on our roads, the reasons for this.
By prohibiting genetically modified organic food.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I hereby move on behalf of the DA that this House be implemented to ensure women's empowerment and gender equality for South African women. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Honourable.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that at its next sitting, this House debate the continuing unlawful and unconstitutional.
On behalf of the NFP, I move without notice that this House notes that in 2007, Home Affairs, Social Development and Security Association of South Africa, to handle the social tents, sound system were hired and professional artists and caterers were engaged to provide entertainment and cater for the event. It remains unfulfilled. And finally notes that the people of Umhlumai and surrounding areas are still experiencing difficulties in payment of grants. Wherefore, we call upon this Honourable House to express its dissatisfaction in the delay of building the multipurpose centre at Indaga to facilitate much-needed social service to the community, and urge the KwaZulu-Natal MEC for Department of Social Development to proceed with the construction and completion of the proposed multipurpose centre as a matter of high priority. I so move.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. Honourable.
Mrs. Kakane was a member of the National Teachers Union, NATU, and also served on the Central Executive Board as the Vice President and to his community that he served with dedication. I thank you.
That she made to the cause of road safety in South Africa. It also further notes that on the 24th of March 1985, Moira Winslow's 24,000 Soweto school children, all aspects of road safety. Noting the tragic death this weekend of Minister Collins Chabani and his bodyguards on the same street, expresses its deep condolences to the Winslow family on the passing of Moira and its deep gratitude for all that she did to try and make South African roads a safer place. Thank you.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. Honourable Member.
Deputy Speaker, I move without motion on behalf of the Chief Whip of the Majority Party. Oh, sorry.
Slip of the tongue. It's okay.
I move without notice, Deputy Speaker, on behalf of the Chief Whip of the Majority Party, that the House notes that every year, 25th March is regarded as the International Day of Remembrance of the Victims of Slavery and the Transatlantic Slave Trade. Further notes that this year's theme is Women and Slavery and pays tribute to the many enslaved women who endured unbearable hardships, including sexual exploitation, as well as those who fought for freedom from slavery. Women and children were the victims of the tragic transatlantic slave trade, one of the darkest chapters in human history, and prejudice today, and calls upon civil society, government, religious formations, and parliament, the human trafficking of women and children. Thank you.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. Yes, Honourable Member.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I rise on behalf of EFF to move without notice that the House notes that while they face the same dangerous and life-threatening conditions, firefighters
with overtime that often goes unpaid, and some have been temporary employees for many years. Notes that the average firefighters and all notes people from underprivileged communities are served toward monopoly capital on a silver platter by our own government.
There is an objection.
Motion falls away. Honorable Wilmot James.
Deputy Speaker, on behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I hereby move without notice that this House notes that scientists at the California-based Scripps Research medical science community and create many more opportunities for them to benefit more fulsomely from discoveries made elsewhere. I thank you.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections agreed to. Yes, Honorable Member.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I rise on behalf of the EFF to move without notice that the House notes that the EFF MPs visited the University of Limpopo Teflop campus in the last weekend and heard of real upfront payment. Further notes that they ensured that there is provision of a free meal a day to needy students, which happened before, congratulates the EFF SRC and salutes them for continued dedication to student service and interest.
Motion falls away. Any further notices? Yes, Honorable Member at the back.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. I move without notice on behalf of the UDM that the House notes that David McGregor reported an incident of a water problem on the western side of East London, and the areas that are affected by this problem are Cholomna, Kazers Beach, and the surrounding rural villages. Recalls that Noreen...
No, take your seat.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. On behalf of the National Freedom Party, I move without notice that this House notes that the South African cricket team, the Proteas, have qualified, and finally notes that the game will start at 6:30 a.m. South African time, and therefore...
Penis transplant in the work by South African doctors who successfully performed the operation on a young man who had his organ amputated, who either die or lose their penises in botched circumcisions each year. Because the patient was 21 years old when his penis was amputated 3 years ago, after he developed severe complications due to traditional circumcision as a rite of passage into manhood. Acknowledges that another 9 patients are also set to receive penis transplant as part of the study. Believes the procedure could eventually be extended to men who have lost their penises to cancer or as a last resort for severe erectile dysfunctional, and congratulates the Tyberg Hospital and the University of Stellenbosch doctors.
No objections. I put the motion. No objections agreed to. Yes, Honorable Member.
I rise on behalf of the EFF to move without notice.
Sorry, Honorable Members, please, your noise levels are high.
Ultimately be traced. Knows that the colonial narrative that Rhodes donated land on which UCT stands is a celebration of white supremacy, because there is no way Europeans can donate African land when they are foreigners. Monuments including the Queen Victory statue here in the Garden of Parliament and off Louis Border. Commend and congratulations and the institutional racist colonial symbolism. Rhodes must fall and all the colonial monuments.
Destroyed all development of recent years in Vanuatu, and further notes that the aid agencies of the opinion that cyclone which appealed for immediate international emergency aid to assist the disaster-stricken country to deal with the after effects of the cyclone. Wherefore, we call upon this Honourable House to extend to condolences to the government of Vanuatu on the loss of life.
No objections agreed to. Yes, Honourable Member.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move on behalf of Inkatha Freedom Party without notice, who qualify to study, to not only find space in tertiary institutions, but also to assist them.
Objections agreed to. Yes, Honorable Member.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance to the Constitution, further acknowledges that these promises demonstrate how out of touch the ANC-led government is with regard to the needs of communities and how false promises are used to disguise their inability to lead.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I move on behalf of United Democratic. While Cape Verde comes in the first place of African countries with the highest number of women.
2015 as an important date on the International Human Rights Calendar. Also notes that the International Bill of Consumer Rights calls for fair consumer practices in respect of product safety, the availability of correct and reliable information on consumers against shoddy goods and poor services adjudicated and settled by an independent body who may order a fair settlement of justifiable claims of the Consumer Goods and Services Code of Conduct, registration by businesses with and subjecting themselves to the authority of the Consumer Goods and Services Ombudsman is done on a voluntarily basis, precluding the Ombudsman implement this Code of Conduct urgently in order to strengthen processes to effectively protect the rights of South African consumers.
If there are no objections, I put the motion.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, ANC objects. Thank you.
House notes that the former ANC Member of Parliament and Chief Minister of then Kazangulu Homeland Chief 15. Further notes in 2010, Chief Mangona made history by stepping down as Chief of the Mangona area in favor of his son, Busa Ngumalo, who is the chairman of the Vembe House of Traditional Leaders. Recalls that he introduced the concept of open door policy and allowed everyone from elites to the rank of family, friends, and all the Mangona people. I thank you.
If there are no objections, I put the
Timely passing of a Member of Parliament and Minister of Public Service and Administration, Mr. Collins Chabane, and his two protectors, March 2015. Recalls that Minister Chabane previously served as Minister in the Presidency responsible for performance, distinct feature of the fourth administration. Acknowledges that he was a true servant of the people who led the kindness, who served and led with kindness, great humility, humbleness, dedication, and energy. Further believes this passing leaves a huge void within the ranks of government and the African National Congress, which is served with loyalty and selflessness for decades, and extends its heartfelt condolences to the family and friends of Minister Chabane, Sergeant Sikele, and Sergeant Litswane. May their soul rest in peace.
Honorable members, before their presence, even on this sad day, welcome, honorable members. We now call on Honorable Matloe.
On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I would like to express our deepest condolences to Sikele and Sergeant Lawrence Lentsuane, following the death in a car accident in the early hours on Sunday morning. In 2012, I was tasked with this responsibility of oversight on the presidency. It was during this time while in 2014, Minister Chabane was appointed as Minister of Public Service and Administration. My party again offered me the opportunity to shadow Minister Chabane's new portfolio. I have immense respect for his work, his commitment, his fairness, and his openness. His efforts in improving the public service machinery have not gone unnoticed. Together with his deputy minister, was no stranger to our portfolio committee meetings. He led with zestful energy and related to the performance of the public service. When I congratulated him on his move to the department, therefore was unmatched. He spent his first few months in office visiting front service staff at various complete instruments. He encouraged public servants to be creative, to be innovative, and to resolve the problem. I have engaged extensively with Minister Shabane on some of the most pertinent issues in the department. Some of them, the powers of the Public Service Commission. He would listen carefully and respond by saying, there are quite a number of issues mentioned here today. Some of these issues, we will correct them as time goes on. Government is very complex. Let's not spend time on the problems and will sorely miss him. My thanks and appreciation goes to my leader, Musi Maimane, as well as the Honorable. Thank you.
Honorable Maniso.
That the transport industry need to be serious and look into a proper legislation. Sonke kufuneka sithi kwanele kubantu abaqhuba benxilile. Sisonke kufuneka sithi kwanele kubantu abathatha imiphefumulo ezindleleni. Utywala sebuthathe abantu aboneleyo. And according to the World Organization Health, the Global Status Report on Road Safety in 2013, 50% of death-related incidents on the roads.
Express our condolences to the Shabane family, both here and his extended family, to his exit to South Africa's cabinet, and his contribution to the governance of our country will be missed. Having served the presidency both before democracy and since playing the role given to him by his party, he was faithful to the ANC and must be. We are deeply certain that a road accident has claimed yet another valuable life. This happens all too often on our roads. And
honorable members, it is with sadness that today we mourn the death of Minister Shabane and his protectors, his relatives, next of kin, and the ANC, which he served for many years. The NFP once said, I quote, "I've fought a good fight, I've run the race, I've kept the faith, and now is waiting for me the crown of glory, which the Lord will give not only to me, but also to those who were longing for his coming and his appearance." The race, and they were fighting a good fight. Their memories will be with us for a long time. We are all mourning. South Africa is mourning. Their death is a loss to all of us. Minister Shabane was indeed a freedom fighter. And he served as the MEC in various portfolios. He used his skill and expertise to give direction and shape to the performance monitoring. South Africa is poorer with the passing of Minister Shabane. He will be sorely missed also as a musician and an artist of note. We only cherish one hope, and that hope is there is life after death. Let there be a full investigation into this accident, and the report must be presented very.
Was an officer and a gentleman of our time. Parliament and a minister will never be forgotten, and this country has lost a leader indeed. An example to be emulated by many, by the current generation. May his soul rest in peace.
The sudden passing away of Mr. Colin Shabane and his protectors. For 5 years, as a deputy minister, I got to know him within the cabinet setup. Whenever he made a contribution in cabinet or in this house, you had to listen, because it was always ure en in die nag op ons paaie. Die gevolg is al meer bijvoorbeeld vrachtmotors en motors met net een lig of geen ligte nie. Soos
like his beloved family, the ANC and the people around the country, his younger brother, Percy, made the most telling point of all. He stressed in TV, he did not use his government position to gain wealth or fame by whatever means. Government, he stood out as a towering figure in the demand for accountability. It was because of his unswearing adherence to values that he endeared himself to us. He had it all, and now he is gone. Felt condolences to his family, his friends, the nation at large, as well as to the family and friends of Lisiwa Sekele and Lawrence Lentsoane. We understand that they are all inconsolable at the moment, but we hope they will regain, things will be fine. Sorry about this whole thing. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Mishwe.
Came to my mind after the initial shock was, life is very short. Speaker, I was with the late Mr. Chaba scheduled to speak on behalf of government. He did not use his prepared speech at all. He told attendees that he was a committed while and then vanishes, close quote. Time is not on our side, honorable members. While we have the truth, my prayer is that the God of all comfort will comfort and strengthen us all as we convey our heartfelt condolences.
The nation is building. We have lost a man, a diligent person. He was always for the pure and for the grassroots level people. The mere fact that he died together with his bodyguards is a symbol of his humbleness and his connection to the grassroots people. He had to wait to be put on the same level with his bodyguards by the death, which is the leveler. Chabane's family, relatives, and friends, day. However, Honorable Speaker, the behavior of these three categories of drivers and their mindset should be thoroughly monitored. We hope that the late Honorable Minister Chabane will be remembered for the good that he has done for the nation. Unlike that popular view of William Shakespeare, when he says, I quote, "The evil that men do lives after them, and the good is often interred with their bones." If the date of death were to be revealed to us, the world really now would be chaos. His bodyguards, rest in peace. I thank you.
The Honorable Trawama.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Moments like this, you become confused because you have to accept that the African national, you end up asking yourself, really, Mr. Collins, how boy? And that from the years of 17 years, from Tefulo Apoko Limpopo, I joined a struggle, Arluela or Lerner Remo Parlamenting. And a kile wali ANC, Helila Rumele Laure, Mohalabo, RSV Secretary Jahai through the African National Congress. On behalf of Aranga, say, Relewa Minani, Relalina, Rutlo Butloko, and Retsepaore, Sesira Hejinse, Setari Ruta or no, Reluan Choro Satova Waldi Kotsi, Kelewa Minani.
The Honorable Godi.
Bani, the village of Shkundu, which brought him up, government and the party to which, and ultimately Robben Island. And secondly, as a public servant, and well, and are able to do their work. We want as the APC to make a call. They also cost the economy. We believe there is no reason why
Honorable Speaker, Honorable Deputy Speaker, Ministers, Deputy Ministers, Honorable Members of the National, Comrade Collins was a political baobab tree. I'm one of those who often complain to him that pap and meat on his plate and devoid to the finish with no fear of any repercussions, even though I saw the accident scene and saw his mortal remains at the Polokwane Hospital mortuary on Sunday morning. Nourished from his teens by some of our finest leaders, exuding all the values of our movement, such as commitment to service to the people, honesty, integrity, discipline. A multi-skilled and multi-talented individual, an intellectual, a debater, organizer, administrator, soldier, political commissar, musician, but above all, a humble servant of the people of South Africa, Africa, and the world. At the age of 54, soon to be 55 next month, as the ANC, we still expected a lot more short of Honorable Minister Chabane. The year 2015 has not started well for us as the ANC. Since January, we have been burying many of our leaders, and Limpopo province has suffered the most, with passing of comrades such as Honorable Diale, Honorable Tembi Wandamunsu, former MEC for Education, and also at national level, we have buried quite a number of 1976 uprising. Clearly, the heroic uprisings at the time when he was only 16 years of age had a major influence on his political outlook. That is why at the age of 17 years, he was already in the trenches. After completing his matric at Chingwezi High School in 1978, he enrolled for a BSc degree at the University of Limpopo, Teflop, in 1979. There, he immediately joined in with other student activists, such as Honorable Mwakora Matlodi, the Minister to Black Consciousness. But after the launch in December 79, through the intervention of comrades in the from Azapo and fully in the fold of the African National Congress, where some of us were elected to lead that structure. But Comrade Collins operated as area commander in the far north and the northeastern Transvaal for a full 3 years health in KwaZulu-Natal. Dr. Vijay Mlakan, former Surgeon General, amongst the few, to name a few, who joined him at Robben Island. He started new academic studies at Robben Island, where he completed an N4 diploma, an N2 diploma in aircraft maintenance. However, he could not graduate because it was impossible to do aircraft maintenance at Robben Island. Otherwise, he would have become an aircraft engineer by the time he left the island. After his return in Petersburg, under the chairmanship of Comrade Thabo Makunyane, he was assisted in starting the office by, amongst others, the current CEO of Transnet, as part of the top 5 of the Limpopo province from 1992 until 1998. And throughout that period, Comrade Chabane was there would be times when there would be some tension and disagreement, and Comrade Collins will always speak at the end of any debate and relaxed. He was elected into the NEC in 1997 in Mafikeng and served right until in the NEC, including in the Disciplinary Committee, Constitutional Committee, and lastly in 2008, in 1994, he became a member of the National Assembly and the Constituent Assembly, which drafted our Constitution. In 1999, he became MEC for Public Works, Roads, and Transport, where he established the Limpopo Road Agency and 2 children. As the ANC, we pass our heartfelt condolences to his wife and family, close friends, the ANC, Mulalo, Muhali Wabahali. Etlela Gurula, Nena, Yatinena, Inkom.
Presiding officers associate themselves with the motion, and the condolences of the House will be conveyed to the family of Minister Chabane. The officers have already signed the book of condolences and encourage all the members to go and sign.
Speaker, As the African National Congress, we are shocked by the shameless action of the Democratic Alliance to censor the Cape Times by not renewing the provincial government subscription to the newspaper in an internal document leaked to the media. This one. The Director General of the province, Advocate Brett Gerber, has this virulent and manipulative apartheid-style threats, which seeks to dictate to the editorial content of the Cape Times by stealth, is just the latest of many attempts to silence the papers and others who disagree with DA. Recently, the DA removed her from its media list for merely reporting unflattering of the party. The DA-led government is using its financial muscle derived from taxpayers' money
Honourable
to
Member,
punish
your time
those
is now
who
expired.
do not agree with this. We agree with SANEF. This is the chronic act.
The DA.
Chairperson, Minister Lindwe Sulu has again misused their position as minister to block service delivery in the city of Cape Town. Last week, the Department of taking part. This is not the first time that Minister Sulu has abused their powers to be an obstacle to the...
Thanks, House Chair. The plight of Tulan Ndlovu and his three siblings since the death of their father, who was a mine worker at Krill Kolira mine. White monopoly capital and profit has taken precedence in the expense of the poor people. Mining companies should be no intervention from the side of the government. His father died of septicemia aspiracy pneumonia, which is a disease linked to many of our people enter the mining sector as healthy employees and only degenerate in their health conditions as the years progresses. Thousands of mine workers around the country suffer from mining-acquired diseases such as tuberculosis, arthritis, and many other mining.
The African National Congress has noted the effort being made to modernize the Department of Home Affairs. In line with Outcome 1, which relates to secured South African citizenship and identity, and Outcome 2, which relates to secured and responsive immigration system, the department seeks to run an integrated and digitized national identity system that is secured and contains biometric details of every person recorded on the system. Over and above this, ensure that refugees and asylum seekers are managed and documented efficiently, and movement of persons in and out of the country is regulated according to a risk-based approach. The ANC therefore supports this initiative and believes that the modernization of the Department of Home Affairs will bring efficiency, integration, and a responsive system with much reduced fraudulent activities. I thank you.
The IFP.
Thank you, House Chairperson. The financial plight of retired teachers, including those who were forced into retirement, is getting out of hand. These former teachers have not received any of their deserved benefits, including pension payouts, for months now, and this has devastated them financially. Some of them are close to losing their homes and could not even support their families because they have not been paid what they are owed. These teachers have dedicated their lives to the betterment of our children and the advancement of our society. Their hard work and passion for their career and their learners showed itself in their work, and instead of retiring to enjoy the fruits of their labor, they are forced to suffer the indignity of not being able to provide for themselves because their pensions and other benefits are inaccessible. Government constantly stresses that education is the key to change one's life. However, the very people who are crucial to the education process, the teachers, are abandoned by their government. With this attitude towards teachers, it is no wonder that many are leaving the profession and others are turned away from becoming teachers because they see discrepancies between what government says and what they experience in reality. I thank you.
The NFP.
In South Africa, we have an estimated 88,000 of sanitation, 20 years after we have attained democracy in South Africa. To our shame, Honourable Chair, the key result from the 2011 census showed that only 46.3% of households in South Africa have access to piped water. To add insult to injury, the National Treasury's third quarter expenditure report for the 2014-2015 financial year reveals that despite 10% decline on last year's year expenditure for the same period, as the National Freedom Party, we believe that the ANC must be held to account for its failure as government to provide this essential service of water and sanitation adequately and in time to those who need it most. As you know, in areas like Bujanara in Northwest and Mkanyagute, people do not have access to clean water. We also believe that the Department of Water and Sanitation should work together more closely with municipalities, which have...
Honourable Member, your time has expired. The ANC.
Chairperson, the announcement by Transnet to invest 9.6 billion in the willingness to get the private sector involved augurs well for the future of this area. An estimated 120 oil rigs pass our coast annually. Because of our inability to service them, they go past us to Asia, the Middle East, and Europe. This initiative will ensure that we are no longer bypassed, and the guidance by the Department of Trade and Industry to promote this as a service hub is good news. This is an opportunity for local investors, and they should not miss the boat. If they do, foreign operators will seize the opportunity. One negative aspect for the Saldanha Bay IDZ growth is the environmental issue of red dust from the iron ore exports polluting the area, and treat the iron ore to prevent the dust pollution as soon as possible. The ANC supports this project as an important job-creating initiative, and all departments must work together to guarantee its success.
The ACDP.
Thank you, Chair. In a speech to the National House of Traditional Leaders last week, President Jacob Zuma on the issue of agricultural ownership and acquisition of freehold title to land. From land we derive our existence. At that time, of course, only about a quarter of all South Africans were urbanized. Today, about 2/3 live in cities. Surveys show that very few of South Africa's 35 million urban people over-focusing and playing on emotions around the issue of farmland has resulted in underdeveloped strategies for urbanization. If there is a threat to our stability, it is more likely to be about the quality of life of those who live in cities and towns than because many of the agriculturalists we have are still white. The ACDP calls on all levels of government and business to refocus
Honourable
on
Member,
urban
your time is now
development
expired.
with adequate housing. Thank you.
The Democratic Alliance.
The fur is flying at the Department of Telecommunications and Postal Services. A Deputy Director General punched a colleague during a heated exchange about why the DDG, on his return from leave, was locked out of his office. He shouldn't have been surprised because the Director General SMS'd him in his absence to tell him he'd been fired for reasons not publicly specified. Then there are the administrative staff being subjected to disciplinary inquiries based on evidence given in an unfinished SIU report into the 756 million rand remains in the shadows. His response to my written request for clarity on these issues was breathtaking in its contempt for parliamentary oversight. He told me to direct my inquiry to the Director General herself. The Minister is accountable to Parliament for the running of his department. He must tell us what is going on. The increasing failures in his department are testimony to his unengaged management style.
And industrialist. It is for this reason that we recognize the importance of the annual Sky Fest, program which provides a wonderful international flavor and in bringing in some of the world's most esteemed psychology. Sky Fest and all the supporters and funders who roll up their sleeves work hard to grow our next generation of.
Continue, Honourable Member.
Honourable Chair, the Kakamas Hydroelectric Power Project is a run-of-river small hydropower project located adjacent to the Neersberg Weir. This is the natural flow and drop in elevation of a river to produce electricity. It is located on the farm. The project is the first of 3 plants proposed for the Northern Cape province. This will be Rimfasmark near the Ochrabis National Park, at Bochuberg Dam and Orange Falls. CAP forms part of the government's larger strategy to supply and below the current level by 2020. The IDC co-founded the project with the Netbank to the tune of 577 million, of which IDC's contribution is 186 million. IDC was...
Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. The upbringing and the development of our children and learners specifically is very crucial. The AIC believes in the development of a person as a whole, that is mentally, physically, and spiritually. We believe that the role seriously given and attention we think it deserves. Sport in our schools need to be promoted and to do so. We believe that the intervention by the Department of Sport working closer with the in rural areas. A lot of talent in sport is found from these deserted areas. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The ANC.
Chairperson, our glorious movement of the people, the ANC, notes with appreciation the launch of the 2015 Apply Now, Keta Career Guidance Campaign at the University of Johannesburg on time for admission at post-school learning institutions. I'm talking about universities, universities of technology and vocational education and training colleges. The campaign brings together two components, which is the Apply Now and the Keta Gate registrations, walk-ins and long queues, which lead to stampedes. We urge our grade 12 learners...
Broken or don't exist, floors are flooded, basins and taps are broken, and many toilets have no doors. No soap, no toilet paper, no bins for sanitary toils, and no cleaning of bathrooms. This urged me to lay a complaint at the SAHRC to investigate the denial of the human rights of our learners. This week exposed that the school in Kala is only covered by temporary toilet seats. No longer can our children be exposed to
crime intelligence and special task team combine their efforts in order to ensure a safer South Africa. It is almost unbelievable that these syndicates operated a mini refinery with smelters, stamps, serial numbers, and documents to make their efforts look legitimate. It fills my heart with pride that the Hawks were able to penetrate such a sophisticated syndicate. And it gives me hope for the future that we can realize the vision of the NDP to create a society free of crime. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Members, that concludes member statements. Recreation, the Minister of Trade and Industry, the Minister of Telecommunication and Postal Services, and the Minister of Economic Development, in that order. The Honourable Minister of Human Settlements.
Thank you very much, Honourable House Chair. If you will allow me to ask Honourable Shange, is claptrap, thank you very much, but he did teach me that balderdash is parliamentary.
I think it's very good English.
Thank you very much. Exists in the Western Cape between the building of houses and attending a meeting that I have called indicates why we actually have such a huge backlog of houses that are not built for our poor in the Western Cape. I called this particular meeting and it was specifically for mayors. Nobody else can elect a mayor except the mayoral committee itself, not anybody else. And I wanted to say,
members,
there are rules and procedures in this government, and I wanted to see the mayor invited, gets onto a plane to go to Johannesburg to attend a meeting where she is not invited.
Honourable
is
Minister,
wasteful expenditure.
your time
Thank
is
you very
now
much.
expired. Thank you. The Honourable Minister of Basic Education.